And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. That's me. And I'm your griot here to tell you a story. I'm on the bop, and some people were asking what is my PayPal. So you go to PayPal and you put in when they ask who do you want to take it to. That's the dude awake 42 at Gmail. The dude awake 42 at Gmail. And I'm on the road, and I'm living off the kindness of my friends. Couch surfing because it was getting a little rough in the deep green. It was 60 minus 60 degrees um, on Christmas, and those 4 days, the day before Christmas and Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and the day after. It was during the day it didn't get above 20, minus 20, but at night it was Christmas Eve, it was minus 60 and a good wind, and so the wind chill was 120 degrees below freezing. So that was kind of nippy, and I wasn't doing too good. I had um, you know lost the balance of my homeostasis, and so it took about a month to get back to it. And the worst part of where I was right there around Christmas time. Well, about Christmas time, I mean, I went off the wagon um, at the Unmentionable Ones family, who are really sweet, really, your basic American, Italian, Irish family. And dad's Irish, mom's Italian. They really do represent. And mom was like, both his parents are um, about 4 years older than me, really. I mean, they're right, we're baby boomers. And, this year is the last year of the baby boomers, meaning the, I think it's like from 1947 till 1967 was the baby boomer period. And then after that, you had, X's and zebras and millennials and whatever you call them. And but the boomers were why they were boomers was that they were the infants of the people who fought World War II, right? And so after the Great Depression and then the Great uh, Second World War, and everyone was ready to move forward and go into a positive experience of the world. And here, that was the baby boomers. And so that was one of the largest, well, that was America's greatest uh, position of expansion and economic success, because the rest of the world was pretty much bombed into non-existence. So we were the manufacturers, and we had built ourselves as the military industrial complex, the arsenal of freedom, and we had basically put weapons all over the world. We were going to invade Japan, so we had stockpiled a tremendous amount, and we, in Vietnam and in Korea and Cambodia, Thailand, um, Philippines, all the islands out there, the atolls, and we had already firebombed Japan for 2 years with B-29s, which the Japanese couldn't even touch. And so they were done, and they had been suing for peace, but we said no. We want you to offer up your emperor. You got to cough him up, and really what we were waiting for, culturally, we knew that was going to be a hard pill for them to swallow. So, but we were getting our nuclear weapons ready, and we wanted to test them out. So there were a number of cities in Japan that we had not touched. We had incinerated everything else, like Germany. We had bombed them back to the Stone Age. But by the time Russia, you have to realize that Adolf Hitler did not create the Nazi Party. Adolf Hitler did not um, um, create the amazing economic wonder where they went from eating dirt to being the largest economy in Europe in 4 years. Hitler took over the Reichstag in 33, then they burnt it down, then they blamed the commies and the Jews, and they got their own, you know, what do they call it? Um, got their own homeland security, their own, Liberty Freedom Act, and they went to town, right? First, they got the Sudetenland back and Hungary and their old empire, and then they just because there are a lot of mines there and a lot of water resources and things, so they really spent 2 years building, double downing on the thing. But you had to realize that that war was a war of mystery schools, right? So Adolf Hitler, who he was representing, he had gone through a number of ceremonies where they did it to him and got him stuck on drugs. You go see the movies of the Fuhrer at the 36 Olympics in Berlin, and his little box up there with all the boys, and he's in his little Lord Fauntleroy uniform, and he is like holding his crotch and bouncing his leg like he's a tweaker, like he's on meth, which is what he was on, right? And Germans just loved meth, and they gave it to their soldiers, and that's why they had the Blitzkrieg. I mean, you know, Germany went into Poland with 1 million soldiers, right? And Poland is not half as big as Ukraine, and Russia went in there with 200,000. Meaning, you have to realize that all these wars are scripted, right? Totally, you know. And in reality, one of the atomic bombs that we hadn't produced enough fissile material at Oak Ridge, so the Germans they had their own atomic bomb. I mean, how do you kill 60 million Germans in 3 years? That's a lot of shooting and blowing things up. And especially, Germany was really only on the front step for the first 18 months, and then they went awry. I mean, if Germany had forgot Moscow, forgot Leningrad, forgot all their cities, and just shot over to where the oil fields were and got those, and then just put, circles around the cities, right? And then put airfields over where the oil was and stop. Because Russia had moved its factories and its supply lines, on the other side, like the Asian side. And so and the Baltic side, way over on the other side, where the mountains. So the Germans would have to go over the mountains, right? And see, that's Russia's biggest problem is geography, because majority of their property is flat until you get to the mountains, right? And they aren't even that. I mean, the place that is highly the breadbasket is Ukraine, right? And so the Nazis first went into Poland, and then they went into um, all the Baltic states, Lithuania, Ukraine, I mean, Estonia, Hungary, you name it. They went through them all, right? And they had already put people in there who were fostering, just like the United States, there was this guy named Prescott Bush that Georgie Porgy, Georgie H's and Georgie W's. And Georgie H wasn't from Prescott Bush's lines. He actually came from a Russian agent who was working for Nikola Tesla, right? And Georgie H, that's why, if you ever saw Curious George, the book for children, and the man with the yellow hat, those were the man with the yellow hat was Prescott Bush, and Curious George was George H. Right, as a little boy, because he would run around Tesla's lab and steal stuff. Now, if his daddy, the Russian agent, had done that, would have been pretty much obvious. But a little boy being a nuisance, and the man with the yellow hat got it. And here's a little something you might like.
Well, this is interesting.
This is
There's so
dark
much about the
journalist.
UFO file right now, and the government's claiming, every day there's a new media thing like, oh, wow, we just discovered UFOs in 2017 with this New York Times article. And if you go just even a half inch deep, it's all Central Intelligence Agency. They're the people that are being quoted. They're the people who are starting the
We
companies
started the
like
CIA
to the
to
Stars
cover up
Academy,
the.
for example. And if you look at To the Stars Academy, which is one of the big purveyors of this, this is the new disclosure for UFOs, and forget about 75 years of research and the government lying. These are all fundamentally, if you look at them, 25 years at the top of the CIA directorate. That's the VP of Operations, Jim Semivan. So you're looking at the CIA coming in and saying, you know what, we can actually use this UFO thing now. We've been studying it 75 years. The National Security Act actually is coming up to a great birthday anniversary
75 years.
in September, and that's going to be 75 years.
And it was started to cover up the flying saucer technology, right? And Majestic 12 is basically that, right? And that money is always signed. Oh, we can't extend the debt limit, but we can give $1 trillion to a black budget. We can dump $1 trillion into a war in Ukraine. I mean, that's, boy. You look at the New York stock market, see where Lockheed and Boeing and General Dynamics and Grumman Aerospace and Raytheon are doing. They're the top of the heap. So this story has been going on, and like I said, this war in Ukraine is just a Vlad. He's part of. He was put there. In '99, he was just a cabbie. He was a fixer for the big city that's kind of near Finland. And he was a fixer for that politician, and Yeltsin knew that guy, and so he needed a fixer because he wanted to take down Mikhail Gorbachev, and the only way he could do it was to destroy the Soviet Union, right? And destroy the Soviet Union. Everyone's busy wondering what's going to happen in all those countries and where all the weapons are going to go, because like Ukraine had its own nuclear weapons, the Stans had their own nuclear weapons, and we were more concerned about that. So, and we weren't, because we gave them the nuclear weapons. I mean, how did Russia, that was bombed in the Stone Age, that had no military industrial complex, you know, get, produce its own nuclear weapon, um, within short number of years? And it wasn't because of the typewriter of the people who were considered Russian spies. Yeah, they were. That guy worked at some plant but the atomic bomb isn't a secret. It's a manufacturing process. Meaning, look at Oak Ridge, right? It's gigantic biggest building in the world. I think it's still one of the biggest buildings in the world. They don't use it, but that's where they had the tokamaks, where they would take the yellow cake, turn it in, and put hydrochloric acid, and then it would become this gas, and then they would expose it to amazing electromagnetic things, and these girls would be behind a thing of glass, and causing the things to precipitate U-235, right? And that's an atomic bomb. The gadget itself, no big deal. I mean, you get two pieces of fissile material, and you shoot them at each other at the right speed, bang, you get a critical mass, and bingo, you get a nuclear explosion. Well, the Nazis had a U-2, one of their large submarines that ran on, what's that stuff called? The stuff you put on cuts, not alcohol, but the one H. But anyway, and the other stuff. I forgot the name. A very volatile fuel. And the submarine, instead of having a nuclear reactor, it ran off of that. It was like a fuel cell, basically, right? And it was basically hydrogen, but it was, the stuff that bubbles on your skin when you have a cut, when you only do it once, otherwise it just keeps killing your skin. uh, hydrogen peroxide. That's the stuff. And the other stuff, the real volatile stuff, is Toten, but that's the German word for, oh, it'll pop into my mind. But anyway, this submarine ran on that. And it also made oxygen, made electricity and oxygen. And it could go as far as a nuclear submarine went. I mean, it did have a limitation about how much of those two chemicals you had, but they were highly efficient. And so they didn't have to come up for air, didn't even need a snorkel because it didn't need to run a diesel engine. It was a fuel cell, basically. And these submarines, you were like, we gave Germany gave one of them to Japan, and Japan turned it into a submarine aircraft carrier. It was that big. They were going to attack America, and they knew they couldn't float one of their. By that time, America had got mass produced a large navy in the Pacific, and so they thought if they had a aircraft carrier that was a submarine, and the Germans built the Japanese one, so it was that big, right? And the Germans were using theirs to ferry all of their high tech to Antarctica, right? And they were building undersea bases, right? And they had moved a great deal of technology to Argentina, to the Perones, and also to South Africa, you know. And so that was the South Africa that you know brought on apartheid, right? So, and they had a missile base there. They were launching things into space in the middle of Africa and South Africa, and a good deal of Blue Origins technology, and also SpaceX. But SpaceX came mostly from this woman who worked for Lockheed, and she was brilliant. She still is. She runs SpaceX. That's the only reason. Moron Musk he is just all of those guys. Micro Penis Billy and Living Dead Faceless One, and um, what's his name? Amazon. All those guys were just Facebooks. And Mr. Apple, they didn't invent anything like this thing. Your smartphone is a miniaturization of the Keyhole spy satellite that was put up in the 1960s and 70s. It does exactly this manifests surveillance economy, right? Every time you Google knows more about you than you know about whatever they're telling you. That's why it's free. It's you know surveillance of you, and they are building a database, and soon you will have, is that a UR code, a little squarey thing with all the squiggles in it? Everyone's going to get a tattoo of that, one on their hand, one on the back of their head, and for all those who aren't that good citizens, maybe one on their forehead, right? And so especially black people will have one on their forehead, and that will be it, right? Everyone will be wearing you know virtual reality goggles. It'll be just like Steven Spielberg's Player One, right? And so, and this was all, if you go read um the guy who was breaking the German codes in England, Turing, right? And when he in the after World War One, between World War One and World War Two, he was in Oxford and a few other places, and he wrote two really good books. One called Golem, which was basically, he was talking about transhumanism, right? So go look at his two books written around that time, and he basically pegs exactly what's going on.
In September, and that's going to be 75 years since the CIA got created, and their number one job, aside from overthrowing elections,
Killing people.
is and assassinating leaders is that they've kept the secrecy on the UFO file.
And keeping
So
weapons.
if you go back
And they were
through
Nazis.
that,
The Nazis
you'll
did
find out that they've kept those 75 years, but who was active early on in protecting it? And you're going to find, you run across the top scientist at the time,
MIT.
named Vannevar Bush, who was from around here, actually, where I am in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And Bush was the head of MIT, which is about 10 minutes from here. And he was a master mason, and he kept incredible secrecy. And so when it came around time to hiding the UFO file, say around the early 40s, this is the person that they turned to. And he was working for FDR in a number of scientific endeavors and the Manhattan Project. So, this is a good guy to turn to for it. But if you go through, and this is something that we exposed, if you go through the MIT background, you're going to find his number one protege was Dr. John Trump, Professor John Trump.
Donnie Trump.
And that is Trump's uncle. And so that shows us that there's a background there, because when we look at Vannevar Bush as this person who ushered in the UFO file and the secrecy around it. And that's another thing about Van Bush, which is it's on the record from top physicists that this guy did this. So it's not something where people are like, well, hey, the MJ12 documents came out and maybe they're real or not. In this case, there's an actual top physicist who came out and identified Bush as the leader of that. So to find that his top protege is Trump's uncle, and then next that he was suggested by Bush to handle the Nikola Tesla papers upon Tesla's death, suddenly the entire situation that we're in relation to the UFO file, the Trump situation, the activity of the deep state, even the FBI raid at Mar-a-Lago, everything looks a little bit differently if you have the history and context.
So was Prescott Bush involved in this, or was he busy laundering money for the Nazis?
That's true. Well, interestingly enough, this Vannevar Bush is not related to Prescott.
Oh, it's not? It's
no,
not?
he's not.
I thought this was a tentacle of the Bush crime family.
It's an accident of history that they have the same name. But they ran in the same circles, for sure. I think Prescott Bush, it's pretty interesting that you mentioned that, because, of course, he was, at the time of World War II, he was actually running a bank in the Union Bank in New York. And his top man was the person who became the top of the CIA, which is Alan Dulles. He was the top lawyer for this bank, and they both got raided by FDR's Justice Department for trading with the enemy. And I went deep on this to figure out, why didn't Bush get any jail time for that? Of course, Senator Prescott Bush is the father of George Bush. Bush 1, who's our first president, and his son, of course, became president, W there. But if you look at this, you're going to find a thread with these guys. And in the case of Prescott Bush, he was running the USO, and this was his cover. So when he got caught trading with the enemy, they didn't prosecute him because they thought, oh, it's going to be too demoralizing. And but then that became the Bush dynasty, and you're going to find them throughout history in America altering things. They're involved in the JFK assassination, Iran-Contra, continuity of government. The real problem with the Bushes in this country, and they're very active now trying to control the political thing, even to the point of siding with Democrats to make sure that this populism thing doesn't run through the Republican Libertarian Party and take over the presidency again like Trump did in 2016.
So we have a question from one of the viewers here. Wants to know why Prescott Bush funded the Nazis. Profit, surely, and controlled power. Didn't they have investments in the, it was so evil they had investments in the mines at Auschwitz and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of American companies. Actually, there's an excellent book called Trading with the Enemy, which came out in, I think, 1981, that lists that really tight relationship. And they've shied away from it, actually. Joseph Farrell's work touches on this as well. And he's an Oxford guy. But my thing on this is it's pretty obvious that those companies were setting up Hitler. They were positioning him. There was a lot of American activity on that. You have to remember in the 30s that Adolf Hitler was kind of, the it guy. He was hosting the Olympics in Berlin, and, he was the toast of America and all these other countries. And then they, that whole machine that turns into Hitler taking over is pretty well funded from Western powers. So he's one of their guys. And what happens is there are companies here like IBM and all the rest of it that help him run the concentration camps and just the massive, put down of the population. So our countries were very much involved with that. And so the fact that Bush got involved, I mean, the Bush family has that history, whether it's drug running, illegal arms, and their mafia ties, that they got involved on a political basis, really, to control a number of these areas, and oil became one of the key ones. But the hidden one is exotic technology, and people don't get that in relation to this ruling political structure. That's what I'm trying to put on the map. You do such great shows on the mafia. I can tell you all about an aerospace mafia that would blow your mind.
Which takes us over back to the secret space program.
Yes.
And ARRO, which I've never heard of.
Yes, it's AARO, and that's the new UFO office. That's like Project Blue Book, Redux for 2022. And this thing was tagged on. It was brought on to the government program. So you got people like Senator Rubio, some more corrupt elements in the Senate. Kirsten Gillibrand is another one in New York. Those are Democrats and Republicans working together to get this. And it's unusual, but what they want to do is create a UFO threat operation through the intelligence agencies and create a kind of environment where, there are aliens attacking us. We need all your money, and we need to blow away the traditional constitutional rules because we have this threat. Now, if you look at the things that they do in relation to emergency powers, you're going to find, the UFO threat is the ultimate card that they have in their back pocket. And that's why you're hearing so much about it, because they need emergency powers. They don't have the powers of the governed. And after the fiasco with the medical emergency and the things that they put in there with lockdowns and everything else, the popularity around these people has dwindled pretty dramatically. So the emergency powers piece is dramatic. What's bigger than a UFO emergency? That's what that AARO is all about. It's a new office. It's funded through the National Defense Authorization Act. So this is, just think of that as me saying they funded it through blackmail. Because the National Defense Authorization Act is what runs the military in America. And it's $800 billion a year on record, probably more like a trillion or two in the black budget sense. But at least on record, we know it's $800 billion. Every president signs on to this thing. Well, these senators that are in the Senate Intelligence Committee, like the ones who set up ARRO, they're able to include and latch on things to that NDAA. And if you don't go along with it, well, you're blocking all this money, so everyone's going to have your head on a platter. So they've been running this AARO and the emergency powers directly through the National Defense Authorization Act. And every president, whether it's Trump or Biden or Bush or Obama, signs that thing, and it is completely unanimous in Congress. There's nobody who says anything. So when they say, we have gridlock, we have these parties fighting each other, it's terrible. Well, these guys all get together for $800 billion at the end of every year. So don't believe it.
Where does it go?
It goes to the military. It's the DoD, and that includes their black projects. And now they have a UFO office, which is going to be UFO defense. So in order to have a defense, you need an enemy. And they figure, well, Iran, it's not really going to do it. They've got Russia, which they've been engaged in really ticking them off by putting NATO on their doorstep, and now you have Russia going in with Ukraine. So you have that, but they really need a big enemy and to get the kind of funding that they want. And the CIA has been working on this for decades. And now their people come out, they don't even have covers for them. They're like, I'm a CIA guy. And in the case of Semivan and another one named Ramirez, who's all over the place, John Ramirez and Jim Semivan, they come out and they say, well, we've actually had experiences with aliens. We've been taken aboard ships and things. These are CIA guys, like high-level CIA people. So in my opinion, they're building a kind of psychological operation that we haven't seen before. And so the situation is dangerous and involves real money.
So is it on the same basis as the Halliburton Dick Cheney scam that all these billions of dollars end up in the pockets of the people running these defense companies, attack companies?
Well, the defense contractors have to be satisfied. That's part of the aerospace mafia. Actually, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, they're all included in there, and they're the ones who make the nuclear weapons. They're the ones who make our tactical weapons. They're the ones who make the rockets, and they're the ones who are controlling the space program and data. So if you want something, if you want a whole database of Americans who are protesters, for example, the government doesn't hold it. Lockheed Martin holds it and lends it to the government. So it's kind of interesting. What we need to do, I think, when we look at this, if you look at a case like Cheney and Halliburton and the way that they were able to do this, Cheney's very interesting because he was part of this program of setting up the continuity of government program. And this is what I think they're planning to use for the big emergency threats. And continuity of government is budgeted every year, billions of dollars. It's a completely hidden program in the United States. It does have links to Great Britain. And one of the things that they've been doing with the emergency powers around this is creating a whole scenario of this Northcom commander, which is the Northcom is the military command since 9/11 that controls America. And this guy that they have in charge there now talks openly about UFOs, which is odd. None of them have before. But in the case of them saying, well, we have an emergency and the continuity of government needs to be activated, this got to take over. And so I try to put him on the record. He's General Van Herk. He's the head of Northcom. And he's slated to take over America with a bunch of regional governors and suspend the Constitution if there's an emergency. So originally, those guys in the government, like Eisenhower, JFK, they set it up if there was a nuclear emergency because we were in a Cold War, and they figured, well, you need this underground government for this. But in fact, they changed that, and Cheney was one of the people who changed it to just any emergency. So, cyber attack, continuity of government, here we go. So COG is something we need to catch up on really fast. This is something that has no oversight in Congress because it's too secret. And when we talk about the secret space program, it's pretty simple. I'm going to put it to you this way. If you look at the secret space program, in 1972 is the last time that we had a manned moon mission. That's 50 years out. So what do you do for 50 years in between?
With $100 million.
There's no manned programs for 50 years. No, there's definitely manned programs. You just don't talk about them anymore. So they've taken those same rules that they set up for the continuity of government program and they've applied them into space. So that's the nature of the situation we're looking at. When we see the secrecy, you're surrounded by secrecy. And what they're doing is they're getting us caught up in, isn't the Ukraine thing? Or I'm pro-Russia, whatever it is. And they'll get you bogged down in a number of social issues. This is how the media works. So you don't talk about what's really going on.
So you mentioned them manufacturing enemies to siphon off billions of taxpayers' money into these defense companies. I mean, how dangerous a game is that in a nuclear era?
Very.
It's extremely dangerous with this group because when I talk to people who've been in government, their typical response is the neocons will get you killed. And the neocons have now moved into the Democratic side. They used to be so cozy with the Republicans, and then it became popular in Republican things to say, well, I'm getting out of foreign wars. And so now the Democrats are all like, hey, we need to go in there and face off against Russia. Well, Russia's a nuclear powered nation. I mean, this is ridiculous. They have nuclear weapons. And the idea of having an actual shooting war with them is the worst decision that you could possibly make, besides leaving hundreds of billions of dollars behind for Afghanistan. They did this, which is they left these really high-end weapons behind there and just took off. But I think the Russian situation is particularly unique because they're on the same level with us. This is the piece that's never talked about. They're on the same level with us on the UFO file, and this is where the real battle is. Forget about a lot of the things that we hear, like, there's anomalies in the air, and Congress is dealing, getting to the bottom of this. That's all ridiculous. They've worked on the program. They've figured out for 75 years this advanced exotic technology, whether it's off-world or something that was created here. They know it. They know it inside and out. So the idea that they've just discovered it and, that the CIA is going to kind of bring us to Jesus is really a stretch of the truth. So the UFO piece becomes a dangerous aspect of what they're doing also, because what they're trying to do is rush this so that they can maintain control and have an enemy. And they're trying to get everyone on board. They're like, well, they've had all these movies and TV shows about UFOs, so they shouldn't be so surprised when they get our version of this thing. And that's where they're going. And I think dangerous is the word, just like you coined the word there.
Which leads us on to CIA Homeland Security disclosure versus real disclosure.
Well, that's exactly what we're talking about. Absolutely. So what we're faced with in the media now is Central Intelligence Agency disclosure. So today, pick up Twitter or pick up The Hill or New York Times, you'll find a little thing about, wow, Congress just said that UFOs are actually not man-made. So the only conclusion left is they're extraterrestrial. Gee whiz, So they block the issue through the CIA and the media for 75 years. And then when they want it out, they've got this version of a threat idea. They create this phony office, AARO, and they've got the Director of National Intelligence in charge of it. So, the histories around these people are very interesting. So CIA disclosure now becomes the type of disclosure that people were looking for. Say 10 years ago, you'd have people out there who are researchers who are like, I want the government to give up their records. I want these things to happen. I want to know about aliens and flying saucers because we've had them for so long. And these little things have dribbled out. But everybody knows that there's something else advanced that's flying around out there. And, that's just one of those things we know. People know that the Central Intelligence Agency assassinated JFK. It's like in the subconscious there at this point. So the idea that the government gets to keep this stuff and then create their own warped version of a disclosure is what we're looking at. And their disclosure, though, is all about this thing being a threat. And that's where the trick is, because that's where the money and the power is located. If they can convince you're under threat, well, stay in your homes. There are aliens out there. We're going to ward them off and just forget about the Constitution. That's basically a scenario that they've been working with, but they're building it in. And whenever you look around, like here, for example, we have the Galileo Project, which is right behind me here at Harvard University. And that's Avi Loeb, who is Israeli intelligence. And all of his board was supposed to be all scientists. So I kept a close eye on the Galileo Project, and all the board are, again, it's all CIA people, including this fake whistleblower, Elizondo, and the guys like Christopher Mellon, who are, really millionaires. And so we're looking at some very dodgy figures involved in this.
So we've just got approximately 5 minutes left with the Dark Journalist. Please put any questions for him in the chat, and we will handle those. And the first question is from A Nexus. What do you think about Cheney saying that Donald Trump is the greatest threat right now?
Oh, it's very interesting. Yeah. Well, if you think about this, how odd is that? Because Cheney is supposed to be, Republican. And the old thing among Republicans was don't speak ill of your fellow Republicans. Well, now he's saying this guy's the biggest threat, period. So you have to wonder, Cheney's the big nation builder. He's the one who bombed all the Iraqi citizens. He's the one who got the oil. He's the one who went after Afghanistan and all the cover up around 9/11. Why does this guy hate someone in his own party? So it shows that Trump, whatever else we might want to think about him, upsets the apple cart for them. Which I think is significant. And I also think that the continuity of government program that I mentioned earlier is part of the reason that the Cheneys and the Bushes hate Trump so much. They're all supposed to be happy-go-lucky Republicans. What is it we're seeing here? Well, his daughter is leading the charge with this J6 committee against Trump.
I don't believe anything. And I don't believe me. Don't believe a word I say. But I listen to everything. And so Dark Journalist, right? I like him because he talks a lot about stuff that I've been around for most of my life. There she is. Hey, honey bun. There you are.
Hey.
So we're just doing a little smorgasbord of stuff. Did you ever go see that guy, Dark Journalist? He's got a YouTube channel.
No, but I was listening to it, but I came in late.
Right.
The YouTube's lagged, but between our phone call and us talking because I have you on the TV
Uh-huh.
here in the office, and you were answering, and anyway,
Yeah.
it was crazy.
Yeah.
But
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 that's
I was listening to a bit of it, but no, I have not ever sat down and watched it. I just thought I'd call and see how you were doing. You look pretty laid back.
yeah, pretty laid back. I'm on the bop. I'm at a friend of mine's in Ashpit, and they're really sweet artist show I did yesterday out at Art Gallery where his art show was. Did you
Yeah,
catch?
yeah, I did look at that after we got off the phone.
Right.
You said you were going over there, and then I hours later looked at it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's his work, and I've known him for years, and he's truly I have great respect and appreciation of his work, and he is so true blue to his aesthetic. You know what I mean? He has been doing this. He's been teaching. He's been doing a lot of great stuff. Now he's being a curator of other people's work around the world, and so but what I love about him. So we were New Yorker artists, and we knew about each other, but we really didn't bump into each other physically until uh, you know he came from South America to Ashpit, and I came from Ithaca to Ashpit, and we bumped into each other, and we said, "I know you, don't I?" And so we became fast friends. So I've known him a good 40 years, and what I love about him is he is so true to what his aesthetic is. I mean, he's not going for the money. I mean, he teaches, he does this, but he's not trying to be famous and rich and that kind of stuff. He's just
Hmm.
trying to tell a story, show an image, get people to identify with it and see it. And his work is so true. That's what I love about his work. It's true, you know. And
Yeah, I wish I could do something like that. I'm not uh, creative in those ways.
well, you are. You just, bottom line, he and I and other people I know, they're going to have a big party here tonight. And so it's going to be like a salon. So I'm going to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a number of years. But we've been doing this for 50, 60 years, you know?
Hmm.
And he's much better so he's stuck at this one thing, his aesthetic. Me, I got a zillion things I'm interested in all over the place. And that's part of my aesthetic. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I'm not just a guy who wants to make a movie and be rich and famous, or do this and be rich and famous, or any of the stuff, because I had been exposed to what is known as the mystery schools. The whole idea, like Newton. The world we have today is kind of was given to us by the Catholic Church and Newton, and
Hmm.
guys like Newton and um, Da Vinci and Mr. We all came from monkeys. What's his name? And
Darwin.
Darwin and all those kind of cats. They were actually what is known as the loyal opposition of the Holy Roman Empire. And the Holy Roman Empire. So when these guys were kind of bringing out technology and science, and then the Enlightenment, and then the Renaissance, that was to make money for the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church said, "See, we will let you. We're not just going to burn everyone at the stake. These guys can do that thing, but we own your soul." They talk about the material world, right? And that's
Hmm.
that's where the separation kind of. I mean, it's always been this separation between who we really are spiritually and what we are physically. And the physical thing is an illusion. And Newton, when you read all these guys, right? So they all came from mystery schools. And when I say mystery schools, things like the Illuminati or the Masons. But see, they're businessmen. They're not, ologists. They're not like going into the deep end of the pool, right? They're just there for the money. The Masons and the Masons are the bankers. They're the guys who gave us, the Federal Reserve. I mean,
Yeah, I have several family members that are Masons.
right. And so,
It's
I mean,
rather weird at funerals too,
yeah.
because the family comes in, and then next thing you know, they're like, "Everybody leave," and then the Masons come in, and
With,
nobody can watch what they're doing.
yes,
I
with
don't
their
know.
apron,
It's
yes, with their apron and all the rest. But it's just it's like theater, right? Look
hmm
at our dollar bill. It has, and the American symbol. It's a pyramid with the Eye of Horus on top of it.
hmm
I mean, that's pretty Masonic right there. But again, it's about those guys are about business, and the guys like the Thule Society and the Man Blavatsky and uh, her guys and people like Gurdjieff, Ouspensky. These guys were like, the word to use it, spiritualist. So did you ever run across spiritualists like the Southern spiritualists who aren't Baptist? They're like spiritualists.
Like the Pentecostal.
Yeah, but even they're deeper. See, those guys are all Pentecostal. Anybody who has a church, it's a business, right?
Yeah.
But the guys who put up the tent and don't take money and feed you and try to be like Jesus, they are, and that was Jesus. How he got his jobs. Yes, he was Jesus, and but as a baby, Mary and Joseph had to get out of town because that king was looking for him. So they went
Yeah.
all the way to Egypt. They went to Africa, and they hung out at all these communities of mystery schools, which are all over the place, right? And
hmm
when you look at archaeologists when they dig stuff up, um, so I used to work for those guys because I wasn't an archaeologist, but I knew a lot of stuff. So they would bring stuff to me, and I'd look at it, and I give them my opinion without the prejudice of their discipline, of their scholasticness. They because whenever you're scholastic, you're stuck by the textbook. You know what I mean?
hmm
Scholar wants to know. So there's a real difference between there's that word theology, right?
hmm
And religion. Religion is a business. And if you take theology and take it apart in its Latin form, what it is the understanding of you know love's co-creation. What it's about. What's the real deal? Not the business end of it, but why are we here? What are we doing? Yes, I know I am not my body. That's the first thing, right? Have you kind of got in your mind, and this is where theology and spiritual folks are, they realize they're not their body, that there's something higher, and it's not like a whenever you watch John and he's going, praise God, praise Jesus, that's like a
Oh, no.
that's like a it's like a business deal. If I say that enough times, I'll go to the gated community of heaven. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you don't buy your way in there. You live your way in there, right?
Right.
Doesn't matter what church you go to or what religion you are or what job you got or how big your house is or how much money you got. It's how much love is unconditional love's in your heart and how much forgiveness is in your head. And that's, I mean, you look at you, you are always there for people who need, that thing in their life. I mean, your nephews, the people who
Yeah.
needed somebody to take care of them. I mean, you didn't have to do that. And then when the state gave you a hard time, you didn't care. You were there for them, right? That's what it's about. So,
Yeah.
and so, and that's why you have kids who come, like the guy Colonel Sanders who came from Florida and brought his own slaves with him. And he's got kids, and so his, I don't know where he gets his money, but he's always got it, and he's always buying his kids motorcycles and this and the newest coat and that, and whenever anyone needs a nickel to, Oh, I'm broke, man. I'm broke. I have no money. Rich people always say. Have you ever noticed how rich people always say, "I'm broke. I have no money." Right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, they do.
Because they're not really rich. I mean, you and I, we have what we need. So
I
we're
can need a little bit more.
well. We. I
Now,
mean,
I don't want like bukus of money, but I don't want to have to want either.
right. Well, you and I really don't want. Do you really want?
No, well,
No. You got a roof over your head. You got three squares. You got a warm place to live. Right. I mean, I live on $400, and you know, if someone wants to throw something in my PayPal, that's always nice. Someone,
yeah.
and my teacher, like the other day, I was someplace, and when I go out and about and I'm amongst, the community, um, I can read. I just look at people and I can read them, and not everyone is ready to listen to what I have to say. A lot of people, what are you doing? And not everyone, I don't ask everyone. I don't say, oh, let me look at your palm, and then I give them a cold reading. I only do that for people who I look at and I can see, if I talk to these folks, I will actually help them. I will give them a few hints that if they listen and they use that, it'll make their life better. So I did that yesterday. I was out and about. I went to that show with my friend, and I was at that school, and I met a couple people, and I gave them readings, and it nearly knocked them over. That I never, I never met them, didn't know who they were, and just, because I could see if I said a few things to them. Right? And a couple of days before that, driving here, I stopped at a supermarket and went into the pharmacy looking for some cough drops and a few other things, and some flowers for my friend here, um, and the lady who, when I asked her, so where's this? And she went off and actually found it for me instead of, oh, it's over on aisle 3, right? So she went over there. So I saw her energy and said, So I gave her a really good reading, and she started to cry, you know.
Bless it.
And then, she goes, I can't believe it, And I said, all you got to do is do those 3 or 4 little things I said, and it'll change your freaking life, right? So that's what I'm here to do, at least at this time, right? I've done all this other stuff already, so whatever time I have to do this, talk on.
I don't have the gift of reading palms or stuff like that, but
Well,
I go around places. Obviously, you've talked to me, and I've been in Timbuktu here or there because I've
Right.
gone to go train people. And I have a style of training.
Yes.
From well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to take you all the way back. When I first started working, there was a sign in there that says, "Tell me how to do it, and I might remember. Show me how to do it, and I may remember. Do it with me, and I'll always know."
Right.
Which is true. And I took that to heart. And all these years later, because I've worked since I was 16, all these years later, when I go places to train people, I spend the first day there asking them 150 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if I was to see, if we were in the bar together,
Mm-hmm.
and I sit down beside you, I'm going to ask you 150 questions. Not because I'm training you, just because
I'm interested.
I'm interested. I want to know where you stand, how you feel, whether I judge how a person is. I can usually tell how a person is to that. And then it's good with training too, because then it lightens the load.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can, take a mental note. 'Cause I don't do notes. I do mental notes
Yep.
of everything.
Yep.
I got one of those photographic memories.
Yes.
So I, remember everything that they've done wrong, and then the next day we work on fixing whatever the issue is.
Right.
So I mean, that's my style. I
Well,
wish I
you
had.
and you just defined about 10 um, mystery school techniques. You know, that thing of, show me, tell me, have me do it with you. That is a shamanic tool.
Hmm.
I mean, so
And it worked.
it works, yes. And the listening, asking the question and listening, and then going back the next day, um, is it. And your photographic memory, um, Alice
Yeah, I can
Bailey
only
had,
get lost one time.
right, has a great thing. She had a process called the mind castle, where you close your eyes, you go into state and you see this big castle, and you go into the castle and it has all these rooms, and in every room there are all these dresser drawers, little drawers, and whatever you're seeing, hearing, doing, or wanting to remember where it is, you stick it in that drawer, right? And so um, all you have to do is close your eyes, see what room it's in, see what drawer it's in. You open it up, and there it is. And that's basically a tool for being a photographic memory.
That well, the one thing is I cannot meditate. I probably could if I was high on a substance or something. I probably could, but as far as me to sit down and meditate, I suck at that. I
Well, you
have
just
to be
never had a
busy
good
doing
teacher.
something.
Next time I see you, or when I see you eye to eye, I'll show you how to, because I can get anyone to, because, and I'll give you a little hint. This is something you can practice with. So how well do you go to sleep? Do you have any problem sleeping?
No, as soon as my head hits the pillow,
Yeah,
bam,
bang,
I'm
you're
out.
asleep, right? Well, that right there is meditation. And when I was at my master's ashram, and there was a whole group of us, and we would group meditate, right? And I would go bang right into state, which is going to sleep basically, and I would be there snoring, right? Just snoring away, and there'd be about, in that group there was about 15 people that, living on this ashram, and they all thought they were really super duper evolved, blah blah blah, right? And I was there
Mhm.
because I was working at the VA, and my boss sent me there to study with this Shinto priest about how to heal people because he was a healer. So I was there to learn the healing. But I got there first. I cleaned up the house before he even showed up. Someone donated this house. I like turned on the electricity, got the water running, and then he showed up, right? So I was his number one boy. And then all these other people showed up, and they were doctors and, people of notoriety. And so we were doing group meditation so we could visualize and look into people without x-rays and stuff like that and see what's wrong with them. And the doctors were like, oh, very skeptical. But so, okay, I'll try. And I never tried. I always did. I wasn't perfect, but you know, my master said, go do that. I would go do it. I may not be perfect, but I would do my best. These people, I'll try. Anyway, we'd all be there, and I'd be snoring, and I could hear in state these people whining. I mean, they're not talking. I can hear them inside their head, like, I can't meditate. He's snoring, right? And our master would say, no, no, no. Al is in deep meditation. And so if you can go to sleep like that, your head hits, you can meditate. And here I'm going to give you, you've heard the term mantra, right?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Well, mantra
yeah.
is just a thing like praying, like Christians. So why do we pray in church? It is to
Oh, I suck at that too. I shall apologize all the time because I'll be like, "Dear God, da da da, thank you for this, thank you for that, squirrel," and then I have to come back and be like, "Oh God, I'm sorry, I was praying, I'm sorry, let me get back to it,"
right.
and that happens to me over and over. But
So
if I
here,
talk,
I'll give
that's
you.
another thing. I don't forget anything I hear either.
Right.
So
Well, I mean that's good, but see, your brain is so big, you can put it. See, you already do all of these mystery techniques organically. Yeah, it's like in you. You don't have to learn them; they're in you. I mean, the thing that you have you don't forget anything, you hear everything. That is a mystery school technique. But to meditate, what you really all you have to do is you say conscious intent I am. conscious intent, I am, conscious intent, I am, Om. And you do it all in one breath. And I take a big breath in, and then conscious intent, I am, conscious intent, I am, conscious intent, I am, Om. And you do it until all the breath is out of you, and then you breathe in. You do that 3 times, and you will be in a meditative state. And now, what people, like you said, squirrel. So,
I laughed because I was thinking, my cat that's glued to me. Well, I'm still at work. I'm still in my office.
right.
But my cat that's glued to me. If I was to do that, she's Siamese. You know, Siamese cats have these crazy looks anyway. She'd look at me and be like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Exactly, of course. Well, that's why you have that cat. You know, that cat is your teacher. So the real deal about meditation, people go, well, things always pop into my mind. And that's, it's supposed to do, because whenever you stop just looking at your eyeballs and just, going what you're doing every day, and you stop and you start breathing, doing that little mantra, stuff will pop into your mind. And all you do to clear that is, like on your phone and you're on YouTube, and things just keep, coming on, and you can just swipe them out of the way, right? So when you're breathing and you're meditating and you're doing your mantra, and something pops in your mind, just sweep it out of the way, and just sweep it out of the way. And it's not bad that those things pop into your head. It's just, that's what, and that's part of the process. So, and see, the real deal of all this kind of stuff, consciousness,
Oh,
self-realization.
look, Lana's on an
What?
esoteric song.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I just looked down. You're on the TV, but I just looked down at my YouTube.
right. And you
Hi,
can,
guys.
you guys, you can see it. I can't. Even with these.
Yeah,
You
they
know.
are saying,
Yes.
hey y'all, and
Yeah. Lana's there. Hey, Lana, how you doing, girl? So you and Lana should hook up. I mean, get exchange emails. And
yeah,
and
she said hi.
Yep.
Let's see, what else did she say? Hey, sorry, didn't know you. Oh, she's talking to Esoteric. So it's not Esoteric Dragon.
Yeah.
Esoteric. I think that's alchemistic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hooked on Phonics didn't work for me, but I think that's Dragon.
It could be, because he something happened. Things go on with my electronics that I can barely see. So I mean, I could hit a button. I did that a couple days ago on my phone. I hit a button, and something, I couldn't make this or that work, and I couldn't figure out what is. And I found someone. I was in a restaurant and said, "Hey, do you know anything about cell phones?" "Oh yeah." And "Oh yeah, you push this. You disabled that." "Oh, so okay." And whether I pushed it or somebody else pushed it, because the powers that be play with my YouTube and everything, right? So and that's okay. I have no problem with anything. It is what it is. That's my life. It is what it is. It's not like, oh, someone's against me. I couldn't care less, you know.
Yeah, I pay no mind to it either.
Right. I don't pay no mind to it. Yep. So yeah, it's interesting that weird shit is more and more of it is happening, and yet the world continues to turn. I mean, the guy I had, he was going on about the aliens and the this and the the government and the dark state and blah blah blah. Well, that shit has been here forever, right? It's nothing new,
Yeah.
right? And the real deal is what you do with what my thing is about me being my best, not trying to get someone to do something or to try to get over on people, like Colonel Sanders from Florida at the end of the cul-de-sac, he's always getting over on people. He's always trying to get over, right? And he's not like an evil person. So, of all the people you've known, and there are a lot of fucked up people you know, but not really many of them are evil, right? Would you say that?
Yeah, for the most part, I try to stay away from them.
I mean,
The folks that,
they're either selfish or they're scared or they're
oh yeah, drama. Anybody with
self-loathing.
their drama's out.
Right, right. Or they're drama cases or whatever, right? But they're not evil. So I don't,
No,
I don't, I do my best not to judge people because you can't. You can't have a clue on what someone is, and especially
well, that's
that saying that can't judge a book by its cover, and that's what most.
that's why I asked umpteen gazillion questions.
Yeah, right.
Because then you can judge a person's character versus what they look like. Because, prime example, I was in school. She was probably in, it used to be called junior high, so 7th and 8th grade.
Hmm.
I don't think it's called junior high anymore. But we had a teacher he was the art teacher. He wore blue pants, dark blue pants, light blue shirt, red tie every day. The same outfit every day. Drove a Mercedes, an older Mercedes, kind of the big top round. I don't know why I'm describing it to you because you can't see what I'm
I can see
describing.
it. When you
But the
describe it,
bigger one,
I close my eyes. I can see it.
it's the big top ones.
Yep.
With the bigger Mercedes.
Yep.
Anyway, his name was Mr. Noble. I'll never forget. But anyway, that man was loaded. And when I tell you loaded, he had more, and he had no children. It was just him and his wife. And he was able to, all of his money went to Vanderbilt. And it was millions of dollars on a school teacher, but he lived like he was a pauper. Wore the same clothes every day. But, you just can't tell.
But he was neat and tidy.
Oh, yeah, he was neat and clean.
Right.
And that kind of thing.
Right,
but,
right. But he didn't have to impress. He didn't have to impress anybody. He knew who he was.
Yeah.
So he didn't have to impress anybody. He drove his Mercedes because it probably was a nice ride, and it always got him to where he wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was comfy, and that was it. He didn't have to buy the newest. He didn't have to go buy a Tesla or something like that.
Yeah, no.
My little Kia, I've had it 10 years. I got about 200,000 on it. And it's getting old like me, but it gets me where I want to go,
Yeah.
I don't push it. I don't speed. I don't, make it, huff and puff, I just putt along. I get to where I'm going.
Yeah, I've got a Tahoe that I drive back and forth to work. It's got over 300,000 miles on it. I bought it from my neighbor down the street a few years back, and I have another car. I have a Ford Flex that I got when I had the boys. So, because they're all long, Derek is 6'2", and Lucas is about 6'5" now, and Brody's inching on up there. He's the youngest. He just turned 12, so it's about time for him to go through a spurt. But
How
what
are they
I
doing?
had before wasn't big enough.
How
When
they
they were
doing?
little, I didn't see car seats.
How they doing with who they are? How they feeling about themselves?
I haven't seen the middle one in probably 5 years.
Do you talk to him?
No, he doesn't talk to me.
He doesn't call you on the phone?
Nope. Brody, I saw him over the Thanksgiving he did not speak because he wanted his Christmas present. And I said, boy, it is not Christmas. It is Thanksgiving. So he didn't speak. Now, the oldest one, he moved to Colorado, and he called me a lot when he was in Colorado. He since moved back here. He's the one, he got Bell palsy from the COVID shot.
Yeah.
He got into college. He called me yesterday. He's 22. He's decided to go into college. He's been taking online cybersecurity classes, and he's going to go to South College. And then he called me this morning and said he failed the entrance exam by 2 points, but he was able to retake it. So hopefully.
So he's going to school. Well, that's good. That to be on a path to do a thing is a really good thing. It's a good thing. I mean, that's what the human is. I mean, that's why we have a job. We have a job not really to make money, but to give us something to do to interact with other human beings.
Yeah. Right now he got him a job over at the Kroger's. He is training to be the deli manager, which I'm not proud of him for that. He went through a rough patch, but he's finally starting to grow up, and that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
So.
And you had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, I do believe, because I had him from the time he was 2 months old till he was 5. Now, my sister wanted to be a mama for a split second. She had him for a couple of years. Then he came back, and then I got him permanently. I got all 3 of them permanently for like 6 years, and the rest is history. But yeah.
So you got them when you could do the most good for them. Those 6 years were made a major difference in their life.
Yeah, I'm just afraid. The middle one, he was 7, and he was a very much mama's boy, and who he calls his daddy. He's not his biological daddy, who's an ex-con, a murderer. But anyway, he is of the mindset, the daddy is of the mindset that women should be barefoot and pregnant, and that's all they're good for, and wait on a man handed. But I wasn't raised that way. My grandmother raised me, so it's not this new wave feminist. It's nothing to do with feminism or anything like that. No. My grandmother was just like, you do what you do, and
you be a human being. That's what you do. You be a human being.
Yeah, you don't have to wait on somebody's hand and foot unless you choose to.
Right, exactly. That's exactly it. And
I'm afraid he's taught the middle one that, and I know the young one is like that.
Well, you did your best to give them an example and give them shelter and a space in their life. And
yeah, so they were safe at the time. So, and I think, like I said, Derek, he's pretty much cut off ties with his. He talks to his brothers, but he talks to me more than he talks to them.
Right.
Let's put it that way. He is 5 years older than Lucas, and I don't know, 9 years older than Brody.
Right.
So there is a big age difference, but he's old enough now to see that what I did for them the years that I had them was good for them.
Right.
So
he sees that, and when I was in New York doing the homestead thing in abandoned buildings, there were about 278 kids over that 10-year period that would have ended up dead or in jail if I hadn't just grabbed him and said, "No, you're here. What are you doing? What? Are you, no, 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 don't do that. Here, you have no place to live. I'm giving you a place to live. You need money. I'm going to teach you how to be an electrician. You know." And
Mhm.
they didn't all turn out to be electricians, but they all turned out to be who they should be. Right? I didn't tell them what to do, or I just gave them an example of me as how to live a life. And they all, when I
It
went,
was it was easier for you then. These kids today
mhm,
expect everything to be given to them. I mean, I I don't have the finest things, but I have worked for everything that I have,
right.
and I can remember coming home and not having electricity or
Hmm.
not having because we didn't have money to pay the bills or whatever.
Yeah.
And I overcorrected and made sure that the boys never went without internet or went without this, that, and another, um, much less electricity. And we ruined a whole generation by that. And now they expect everything to be free. And
Well,
life's not free. You gotta work for it.
That's part of this. Oh, what I call the hidden hand is trying to basically hoodwink the human race into giving up their humanity just for chump change, like a Game Boy or a internet connection, or I mean, that you shouldn't lose your humanity for that.
Yeah.
The stuff is just a tool. The stuff is just stuff. It's just a tool, and it's what it is, and it will work its way out because every generation in its own way was the same way. I mean, when I was growing up and in the 60s, 50s and 60s, there were people in a certain socioeconomic group that felt that way, right? I went to
Mhm.
some pretty, because of my who I, the kid I was. I was, oh, this kid's smart. So I went to some pretty high end schools, and I wasn't coming from a high end place, not like these guys anyway. And they were in that. I mean, they were that kind of like Robert Kennedy. Jack Kennedy's brother who got shot. His
Mhm.
middle son Joe was my roommate in high school, right? So that kind of level of people, right? And
Yeah.
and about three-quarters of them expected, somebody to wipe their butt, right? And I grew up, in Harlem, and grew up with my grandma, and my parents were middle class, and then when they did better, they were upper middle class, and then they were upper middle, and so they weren't really rich, and so I never thought of that. So I was never lacking for anything, never went hungry, always had a warm place, and I got to have amazing teachers in my life, right? And not just my parents, but them. But whereas my brothers and sisters, they stayed with my parents. I always was either with my grandma or I was at some school or whatever. But it's interesting. So my oldest sister, I was talking to today, and she is just like she was when she was a teenager. I mean, she has the same chip on her shoulder. Can. She's really but people who are um, um, to the outside world, they're just really sweet, right? Yeah, but they can be really nasty,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I know those folks.
Yeah, that it's not, well, she's not really nasty, but she has certain issues that if her buttons get pushed, she can, just lose her mind, right? And
Little bipolar there.
little, yeah. I mean, they all are because they were around my
Not
parents.
funny, but that's that's a running joke. It's not funny because it is a true illness.
Right, right. But
But I'm sorry.
right, no, but she's not really bipolar, but what she has is and I was trained to be a shrink, so and I'm not a big believer of shrinkydom. because they put people in a box. Now, what I did was I did exactly what you do. I listened to people, and then I asked them a bunch of questions and let them answer them, and then let them have the experience of hearing what they said about this question or that, which then makes them. It's like that thing you said about learning. Show me,
Mhm.
do it with me, and then let me do it, and then we'll go from there. And that's was my technique of being a shrink, right? And
Mhm.
most people who have issues are basically neurotic rather than bipolar or psychotic or this kind of dystopian blah blah blah. No, it's people have just been in a state most of their life that they never had the freedom to be who they were.
I I went several years ago, and I still have them, but I used to have migraines super bad, and they had put me on some medicine, and I guess it made me depressed or something.
Right,
I
right,
don't know. And so I went to a shrink, to a psychiatrist,
right.
and I had a good job. I was actually I was working two jobs because I like to work, and um, but anyway, I decided that I was going to quit my job and join the military. So I went in and handed in my notice, and um, I was actually working at Vanderbilt, and went in and handed in my notice, and um, it was right. It was right. It was 2001. It
Right,
was 2001. So it was November, right after September 11th.
right,
Because I was like, I'm going to join the military. I'm gonna go fight for, whatever.
right.
Come to find out, I couldn't because I'm hearing impaired. So apparently, they want you to hear more than 60% each year
Oh yeah.
in order to fight in the military. I don't understand, but uh, so I had to read that. I swore then I'd never go back to a street because I felt like she talked me into uh, quitting my job
Yeah,
and
right.
pursuing
But
what
by
I
what by
thought.
doing that, you went down another path, and that's where you are now, right?
Yeah, yeah. Shortly 2002, I started where I'm at now.
Right. So, I mean, it always works out if you're open. And the real key, and this is what they don't teach kids or people in general, that it's your life. You're the decider. And when you start deciding for yourself, that's when you become mature. You know,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that's true.
And that's what you do now. I mean, your whole life is you decide what you're doing. You're not really being pushed around by anyone's expectation of you.
Oh no, there's no, I don't. The only person I ever cared really, I mean, I care what my job thinks about me, obviously, because it's my job.
Yeah, right, right. There's
Um,
there's that dynamic, but that's not what I'm talking about.
but the only person that I ever actually cared what they might think of me was my grandma, because
She was your
like
grandma,
well, like you, she raised me.
right?
I mean, I lived summers with her and weekends, but then when I was 12, I moved in with her full time.
Right. How long did you
So,
stay after 12?
it's funny. Till I was 30.
Right.
Um,
There you go.
and the only reason was because, well, for one, I traveled quite a bit for work. I lived in various places: Atlanta, Winston Salem, California, um, Texas, all over the place. And I couldn't see paying an apartment.
Right.
And when I was never there, I was maybe home maybe twice a month during that time. And my grandma really didn't want me to move. And
No,
then
she
the
loved
house
your
just,
presence. Even when you weren't there, you were still there.
yeah, because my stuff was there.
Exactly.
So when I was 30, I was like, I'm getting a little too old to live at home. And I had decided I wanted to come off the road. And, I didn't mind going to stay for somewhere, a couple weeks at a time, but not months at a time.
Yeah, right.
So I bought the house directly across the street from her.
Mm-hmm. Which
And
was
I
a
still
good
live
thing.
there.
That was a
Yeah.
good thing. Because
And
you
it
had
made
your
her
own
feel
place,
safe.
but your grandma was just across the street.
Yeah, boy, she watched my driveway like a hawk.
Yep.
Who needed cameras?
Right. You
I
had
had a
grandma.
nanny.
Right.
My nanny sat at the window and
Yep.
watched. Who's called? Who's in your driveway? I don't know.
Yep. And
But
that's the best.
miss
Where
that.
I grew up in New York, there were no police. There were only grandmas. And all those
Yeah, there's no
grandmas
police
knew
in
each
my
other.
neighborhood.
And I could be on the other side of town, and if I did something not right, and some grandma saw me do it, I would get home. My grandma knew about
We got a Facebook page for that now.
it.
Well, I live in an island in the middle of the city, so no
Yes.
police run through there. Every once in a while, you'll see a sheriff's car run through, but very rare. So we all watch out for our own. So some of the newer people that move in, they brought some of their California and attitudes with them.
Yeah.
'Cause Tennessee, Florida, Texas is the top, and one of them out west, Arizona, are the top 4 states people are moving to.
Yep.
I saw that statistic the other day. One, because we don't have state income tax in most of those. I think Florida does.
One of the reasons I moved to Tennessee, I mean, I stumbled onto this great place, and I bought it for like nothing. But where I live, you don't have to. You tag your car. That's it. You get no inspections. You get no this. You get no that. And in North Carolina, man, they hit you for everything.
They used to do that here. You used to have to run through. Originally, it was called MARTA, but it was an emissions inspection.
Yeah.
You had to go through and they put something on your gas tank or something.
Right.
And tested the emissions and made sure you had a catalytic converter.
Right.
I
mean, my car wouldn't pass any of that.
It was fine.
Right.
But it wasn't for the whole state. It was just for
around
Davidson County and the 8 counties that surround Davidson County.
Right.
But last year they got rid of that. So now, like, I don't know how much your tags are, but ours are 50.
Yeah, ours is about that. Yeah, ours about that. $50, $60. Yep. Just for the tag for license plate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, baby, my battery is about to die.
Yeah, I just realized it's 5 o'clock. It's dark outside, so I got to head home myself.
Yep. So you drive safe, and I'll talk to you later.
All right. Well,
always good talking to you. Love you, baby.
Love you too.
Bye.
Get with me, Lana.
Lana, I'll try and get a hold of you later tonight.
Because I do have the WhatsApp. Somebody have to teach me how to use it, but I got it.
Yeah.
So hit me up. Bye.
Well, okay, kids. I'm going to sign off. It's an hour and 29 minutes. party. I hear people strolling in upstairs, and my battery's just about to die. Well, I hope you enjoyed the shows today, and I'll talk to you later.